This is a WGBH News special presentation. The first Massachusetts Attorney General debate between incumbent Maura Healey and challenger Jay McMahon. From our Brighton studio, here are our moderators, Jim Browdy and Marjorie Egan.
Good evening and welcome to everyone watching or listening on WGBH2, 89.7 and WGBHnews.org. With Election Day a little more than a month away, we hope the next 30 minutes will help you decide your vote for Attorney General.
We're joined by Democratic incumbent Maura Healey, who's currently finishing up her first term in office, and Republican challenger Jay McMahon. He's a trial attorney out of Bourne. Thank you both for joining us. They just met, by the way. While there are no formal rules or time limits in this debate, we will be keeping track of speaking time to keep things fair. And since we have a lot of ground to cover, brevity will be appreciated. That said, feel free to talk to each other. In fact, we encourage it. Marjorie, it's all yours.
So, Maura Healey, let's start with what the entire nation is talking about. Should Brett Kavanaugh be on the Supreme Court or not, and why?
Absolutely not. He does not have the judicial temperament to sit on that court. And to me, it's not a matter of policy or which way his judicial leanings go. I think what we saw last week in a really stark display was the lack of decorum, the lack of temperament that really is required for the highest justice in the land. And beyond that, Marjorie, let's be clear. There are hundreds, if not thousands, of people out there today who are qualified to sit on the Supreme Court. Donald Trump should nominate another person. Brett Kavanaugh should have packed his bags and withdrawn his nomination already. And I think that last week also was a powerful moment for survivors, for victims of sexual assault. Dr. Blasey Ford's testimony was credible, it was powerful, and it was inspiring. And the fact that we're even having this conversation and gutless Senate Republicans conducted themselves the way they did is really shameful. The Senate didn't do its job years ago when it stalled Merrick Garland. It didn't do its job last week. And if we don't see his name withdrawn, I think that's a real shame, because you know what? As an American and as somebody who's an attorney general and is practicing in the courts, we need a court that the American public can respect and can trust to be fair and impartial.
Got to hold you there.
Brett Kavanaugh should withdraw.
Jay McMahon.
Well, you know, it's interesting, as you say, the nation's been gravitated to TV and watching these the hearings, and I have to admit that the hearing, Dr. Ford was her testimony was very compelling, but also so wasn't the judge as well. I think everybody is looking at this, everybody's watching it, and it is a process that you have to go through. The FBI is doing their report. I understand that the report is supposed to be completed today. I think we have to wait and see where the facts take us, although, to be honest, didn't we hear this from the very beginning that the Republicans were in favor of him and the Democrats were against him? I don't know if any votes are going to change because of the results of whatever the FBI report comes back.
Well, there are three Republicans who haven't stated their position.
Well, that's true.
Are you a fourth Republican who's not taking a position? Do you have a position today on Kavanaugh?
No, my position is to wait and see what the process is.
Can I, Jay McMahon,
take them through the process?
One of the concerns critics have voiced about his elevation of the court is whether or not it would put Roe v. Wade at risk. You've stated that you believe gay marriage and abortion should be left to the states. So do you support the reversal of Obergefell, the same-sex marriage case, and Roe, which would leave these matters up to the states?
Here's my no, I don't. But I had said, and the way I said it about the context of it was that it should have been a states' rights, but it wasn't. It was, and that was going even back to 1976. Jimmy Carter, one of the few things that I even agreed to with Jimmy Carter, one of them was he said that it should all be that abortion, and I would assume as well gay marriage should be left up to the states. But it's the law of the land now, so I don't have an issue with it.
So if I can be clear, you don't agree with the decisions, but you don't want them reversed. Is that
I don't
a fair
want them
statement?
reversed. There's no need to reverse them.
But you don't agree with the decisions?
I didn't agree with them because of the way I think it should have been a referendum. I think the voters should have had a right to say something about that.
And it should be state by state.
It should have been state by state.
Is something that is a state matter as of the moment left to the states is the rights of transgender people in public accommodations. Obviously, you both know the legislature and the governor signed a bill to provide those protections. There's now a question on the ballot, question 3, to repeal it. Very quickly, if you can, Maura Healey, how are you going to vote and why?
Yes, on 3. Look,
To keep the law.
Sure. And civil rights are human rights. And I just want to be clear, because I think this is an area of disagreement. I strongly believe that women should have the right to select the health care of their choice. In fact, I've sued President Trump over that successfully to ensure that women in this state have access to coverage for contraception and access to the health care that they need. I have a long record of standing up for civil rights as Attorney General. I will continue to do that if reelected. And these are matters of both state constitution and federal constitution. And as Attorney General, you better be in a position to enforce both and uphold the rights of both. And certainly when it comes to protecting the rights, an existing civil right here under Massachusetts law, the right of a person to use a place of public accommodation, to get on a bus, to go to a restaurant, to go to the movies, and not be refused service because of their gender identity is an important law we need to keep in place.
How would you vote on that, Jay McMahon?
Well, I'll tell you what, I'm going to vote no on it, but the reason
To repeal the law, just
to
to be
repeal
clear.
the law, because it doesn't go far enough. It doesn't protect women from sexual predators, and that, I think, is a public safety issue.
How does it not protect
Well,
women from-
because you can have anyone's in particular, and I'm saying males who would go into a woman's locker room or a woman's restroom, and it could be people who are on a sexual list, and it just doesn't go far enough in protecting women and children, and that's the problem I have with it.
That's a gross and rather offensive characterization of the law. And just to be clear, the reason that I, as Attorney General, am standing with district attorneys and police chiefs in support of this particular law is we know the people who are actually beat up, harassed, assaulted are people who are transgender. And that's one of the many reasons that the legislature saw fit and Governor Baker signed into law an important law that would protect these vulnerable
Do you
people.
want 15?
We need to keep laws like that on the books. And by the way, there's no evidence anywhere, no record anywhere, and we've looked across this country of an instance where somebody used a protection like this to commit a crime.
Is there
if somebody,
evidence?
if somebody
Absolutely.
commits
Is there
a crime,
evidence
we
of
can
that?
There's
prosecute it.
evidence of men going into the ladies' room and putting cameras and all kinds of
Well,
stuff.
that's a crime,
in there.
isn't it?
Absolutely, it's
But
a
that
crime.
has nothing to do with the transgender
It
public
doesn't, but
accommodations.
well, it's not the transgenders that we're concerned about. It's the men who are using it and claiming to be transgender.
Okay, let's move on if we can. Jay McMahon, as you know, the Attorney General, she just mentioned this, has challenged the Trump administration on a whole bunch of stuff, everything from the travel ban to offshore drilling in Massachusetts to protecting Dreamers from deportation. You are a supporter of the travel ban, I realize that, but would you have made any of the other same challenges that she has made to the Trump administration?
In some cases, maybe, but certainly not with respect to the travel ban. I think by Maura Healey going in and doing what she did with respect to the travel ban was against our public safety interest. The Trump administration received information from the Obama administration, holdover intelligent officials from the Obama administration, that elements of ISIS and Al-Qaeda were coming into the country from 6 Middle Eastern states through the refugee process. To me, it went against our public interest in Massachusetts to keep our citizens safe.
Okay, you also oppose sanctuary cities. So should leaders of communities which declare themselves sanctuary cities like Boston, Brookline, and Somerville, should they be subject to prosecution?
Only if I find that they are actually harboring fugitives from justice or conspiring to protect fugitives from justice. Then they should be prosecuted. There has to be an overt action, not just a declaration.
Okay, so if the police pull someone over and they have been driving through a red light and they're here in the country illegally, is that a person that they should turn over to
If they
ICE?
find that there's an ICE detainer, yes, I do. Yes, they should.
Okay, one other thing on this whole thing. Did you support the president's policy to separate families at the border?
I did not.
You did not.
No.
Attorney General?
Well, you want me to take you to the
Well, no,
one of those in turn?
actually something else. I know you support sanctuary cities, correct?
You know what I support, Marjorie? Are current laws that ensure that local, state, and federal officials and our departments are working together to keep those who are dangerous to our communities off of the streets. And part of the problem with what Donald Trump has done is really set out a lot of unfortunate rhetoric. And I'll tell you the reality, okay? The reality is, with the travel ban, you know who was so supportive of my office's challenge to the travel ban? Our largest employers, our largest businesses, our teaching hospitals, our research institutions, our colleges and our universities. All of those entities adversely impacted by a wrong-headed immigration policy. I'm glad we were successful in stopping the travel ban in court. It's also why we fought to preserve the DACA program, because these are policy decisions made by a president that hurt Massachusetts residents. The job of the Attorney General is to enforce the law and to protect the interests of people in Massachusetts.
So would you make Massachusetts a sanctuary state?
No, that's not my call. I'm the Attorney General. My job is to enforce the law.
I want to get back to something you said, Jay McMahon, just a second ago. You said you might have agreed or did agree with, she's filed a couple of dozen pieces of litigation against the president. Which ones did you agree with the Attorney General on?
It's interesting you would say that, because really...
No, you said it. I'm just
I know that.
you said.
You are. From the ones that I have read and scanned through, I'm not sure that I would do it. But I'm just saying that she did it. She had a prerogative to do it. In other words, she had some basis to file it. A lot of them I find there's no basis to file it. But I go to the first one. And to just pivot off something that she just said about enforcing the law, one of the things that Maura Healey has been is a political activist, and not only enforcing law, but going beyond that by creating her own law, almost as a super legislature. Well, her reinterpretation of the assault weapons ban. She has actually signed an edict, if you will, a decree, in which he declared whole categories of guns as actually illegal to possess when they were purchased through the Massachusetts gun portal.
Let her respond. You want to respond to that quickly, please?
Well, I think it's probably pretty clear I'm not the NRA's favored candidate in this race. But I'll tell you what I did. You know, the morning after the Pulse nightclub shooting, I asked my team to identify whether or not that weapon that was used in that mass shooting was available for purchase in Massachusetts. We have an assault weapons ban on the books, bipartisan legislation signed by a Republican governor, reauthorized by Mitt Romney actually back in 2004. And when I learned that in 2015, 10,000 assault rifles were sold in Massachusetts in violation of the law, I did my job as Attorney General, and I sent notice and made clear that we would enforce the law and that those sales were prohibited under existing law. Since that happened, Jim, sales of those weapons have ended here in the state, and yes, I've been sued twice by the NRA.
Before we get back to guns, just one important question. Where are you on offshore? The president's proposed drilling on the coastlines, West Coast, East Coast. Are you in favor of offshore drilling off the state of Massachusetts on Cape Cod?
I'll tell you what. There's a problem with, obviously, offshore drilling. We've seen it in the Gulf. There's been tons of things that have been done to improve problems, to try to keep problems from what we've seen in the Gulf.
So would you have sued the administration on that issue?
No, I would not.
Okay, but are you okay, I just want to make sure you're for it or not for it.
I'm for it.
You're for offshore drilling?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
Guns, since you brought it up, we're going to get to it later. Let me ask you about a couple of existing laws, if I can, Jay McMahon, in the state, and then quickly, if we can, then I want to step back and ask you a larger question. The assault weapons ban.
Yes.
You support that? In Massachusetts, the existing assault weapons ban.
It's the law of the land. There's nothing you can do about it. Well, it's not whether I support it.
No, it's not the law. I'm talking about Massachusetts. Do you support an assault weapons ban in Massachusetts?
If you're talking about the AR-15s, is that what we're referring to?
I'm talking about the existing law as enacted in the books of Massachusetts. Do you support that law?
I will enforce that law. Whether I personally like it or not is a different matter.
Well, I'm asking you, do you personally like it? I mean, that matters.
I don't personally. I do not like it. No.
How about the red flag law that recently passed that allows police or family members to go to court for the temporary removal of a weapon from someone they think who may be a danger to themselves or the public? Do you support that?
Well, I'm glad you asked me about that, because it's different when the police have probable cause that there could be a problem. But this present bill goes well beyond that. In other words, the law gives them the ability to just go in on the scantest pieces of evidence.
So you're opposed to that?
I am opposed to it,
How about
but I am going to enforce it because it is the law.
How about the law that was passed banning bump stocks after the Las Vegas shooting?
I was clear. It was clear on that before it went down. My position was not to ban the bump stock.
Not to ban.
Right,
the
not
bump
to ban
stock.
that. I've actually shot with a bump stock. A lot of people have not. They haven't even seen it. They don't even know how it works. A bump stock could easily be created with an elastic band.
So, are there any restrictions on gun ownership that you support?
People who are prone to violence, who have shown by their record that they are prone to gun violence, and people who have mental issues when they can't form rational
But
judgments.
not the type of weapon. No banning of any type of weapon.
Well, not automatic weapons, not weapons that are already prohibited by federal law.
Yeah, Maura Healey, you support all of those. I know you support each of the things that we were just talking. I want to take a step back for a minute. There are high crime issues in a bunch of cities in Massachusetts. The District of Columbia years ago tried to ban handguns in the District of Columbia. As you know, I'm sure you both know that's the case. They went to the Supreme Court. They overturned that ban, and that was the case that established that the Second Amendment right to bear arms applies to individuals. Would you support the banning of handguns in cities in the state if the leaders of those cities said we need that to make our cities safer?
Well, first off, Jim, we've got to follow whatever constitutional precedent is, and I have to look at the language. But I'll tell you something. There's a reason that Massachusetts has the lowest gun death rates in the country. We have strong laws on the books, and we enforce those laws. I've had to defend, as Attorney General, multiple challenges by the NRA to the law that says it's your police chiefs that get to decide whether or not you get a license to carry. They've challenged storage regulations. Yes, they challenged the assault weapons ban. But as long as I'm Attorney General, I'm going to make sure we're enforcing laws that are there to protect public safety. By the way, you can respect and honor the Second Amendment and also make sure that you're enforcing laws that protect public health and public safety.
Do you think she honors
That's my
the Second
job.
Amendment?
No, not at all. I think she violates it and she tramples right all over it. Well,
Quickly.
very quickly, gun violence, her original reason for issuing her edict in July of 2016 was to get guns off the street. No legal guns got off the only legal guns got off the street. Illegal guns will always be on the streets. And as for gun violence, no licensed gun owner has committed gun crimes in Massachusetts. And other than last year, the last time someone was even killed with a rifle in Massachusetts was in 2006.
Jay McMahon, what about getting rid of the gun show loophole that enables you to go to New Hampshire and with cash and buy whatever you want?
Well, wait a minute. When you say gun show loophole, you mean in Massachusetts?
In New Hampshire.
There is no gun show loophole in Massachusetts.
There is in New Hampshire. You can drive right across the border.
You still have to go through the Brady bill.
Well, you can buy whatever you want with cash in New Hampshire.
But I think that points out why you need federal solutions and those who are willing to support comprehensive reforms and really, frankly, reforms that the vast majority of Americans support.
Opioids, or did you want something else first?
Go right ahead.
Jay McMahon, you've said that you would really focus, if you become Attorney General, on the opioid epidemic. I'm wondering what you would do that the Attorney General hasn't done.
I would go after the drug dealers. That's number one. I would also be sure that the rehabilitation programs that are offered to the government programs, they're a dismal failure. They're revolving doors. There are people that are going through the government programs dozens of times. However, the private paid programs have an 87% success rate. So that's one of the things I would focus on is effective and successful opiate rehabilitation. I would also dry up the source. Heroin and fentanyl. 80% of our people in Massachusetts are dying of heroin and fentanyl. The death tolls are rising. In 2010, they were 500. Now they're up to over 2,100. They've quadrupled, and only last year have they leveled off. And we've got to ask ourselves, what death rate becomes tolerable in a society? Massachusetts is the medical capital of the world. We can do so much better for our citizens than just having a failed government program and doing literally nothing about it. We're paying lip service, but we're doing nothing about it.
So I just want to be clear, you would go after the drug dealers, but not the drug users.
Okay, I would use extreme prosecution on the drug dealers, but on the users, I would rather see them get rehabilitation, and give them their life back.
Okay.
Real.
By the
One
way,
thing-
so far you've had 2 more minutes of speaking time than the Attorney General, so we'll try to make it up in the final minutes here.
Just one thing. You mentioned that that government rehabilitation programs don't work as well as private ones that go on for longer. Who would pay for these private programs?
I'll tell you what, we can do it because we could keep from paying dozens of times. I've met with parenting support groups where children of parents have gone through dozens of times. I'm talking over 30 times.
So the government would pay for the rehabilitation programs?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Let me tell you on opioids. First thing I did, set up a fentanyl strike force, secured $1 million from the federal government to go after the cartels. Every day we are bringing cases to break down heroin and fentanyl drug trafficking operations. We sued Purdue Pharma and its executives, and we are leading a multi-state investigation into all opioid manufacturers and distributors. We worked with doctors and pharmacists to change the law around prescribing, and I'm leading an effort out of my office to make sure that we have prevention education available in all of our public middle schools. We need to stop addiction before it sets in. And when it comes to treatment, we are not doing enough in terms of what we need to do for treatment. There needs to be, and I've long been an advocate for more access to treatment, longer treatment and care for families, and we need to continue to do that. So we have made some progress as a state. As you know, I've been working closely with the governor, closely with members of the legislature on this. This has been a bipartisan effort the last 4 years, and it needs to continue, but nobody is more committed to addressing this crisis than I am. It is and remains my top priority.
You know, the woman that will likely be the new district attorney of Suffolk County would go further than that. She would say that we shouldn't even prosecute people with intent to distribute drugs. Do you agree with her?
I think that it depends on the circumstances. I think that strategically focusing on those who are trafficking heroin and fentanyl into our communities. I mean, fentanyl is what is killing the majority of residents in our communities. For a while now, it has really been what is the leading cause of overdoses. So focusing on that is absolutely imperative while doing what we need to do to provide access to treatment and care. But I will come back to education because, you know, part of this is really making a concerted effort to meet our young people. Substance use prevention education is an unmet need in our state. That's why, as Attorney General, I offered and created this program and made this available to public middle schools around the state. It's something we need to continue as well.
Got to hold you there if I can. The Globe Spotlight series, Maura Healey, the other day, reported on the so-called secret courts in Massachusetts where criminal behavior disappears in these private hearings where who you know and the color of your skin often matters more. There was a district court judge, Patricia Curtin, caught on camera taking a $4,000 watch off a conveyor belt at Logan, no charge. Jared Remy threatened to kill his girlfriend in 2000, no charge. We all know now he's in jail for murder for the rest of his life, killing his girlfriend and the mother of his child. That system has been in place for the whole time, for years, including the whole time you've been Attorney General. Have you ever voiced any concern about it, proposed any reform to it, and if not, why not?
Well, I think it's something that's been brought to light through this reporting. I want to learn more. As you know,
Did you
Jim,
not know about this before
well,
this
our
series?
cases, the cases that the Attorney General's office brings do not come by way of show cause hearings. We're not in those courts.
So were you unaware of this before the Globe series?
No, I'm aware that clerk magistrates, of course, exist throughout district courts in the Commonwealth, and I think that it deserves a fair look and an inquiry. And, you know, as somebody who's worked closely with the courts on a number of reform initiatives, I'm happy to engage on this as well.
Are you concerned about it, and what are you planning to do about it
I'm
here?
absolutely concerned about it, but I do know that Attorney Healey is soft on crime. I mean, she has actually been on record as saying that the Massachusetts sentencing guidelines are too harsh. I say they're not harsh enough. There's an opioid epidemic here in Massachusetts. People continue to die 2,000 a year. We got to do something about it. We got to start driving these pushers, either put them in jail or drive them out of state. So to say that the sentencing guidelines are too harsh, no, they're not harsh enough. Let us drive these pushers, these drug purveyors, these traffickers, drive them out of state. Let them go to another state where the laws are more lenient. We're fighting a war here.
Do you support, very quickly, a yes or no answer, do you support eliminating mandatory minimums for nonviolent drug offenders?
No, I'm not going to. No,
You do not?
No,
Okay,
absolutely,
fine.
I don't.
Fine, I got to hold it there because we're really short on time.
But I do want to answer the question about the district attorney for Suffolk County.
10 seconds.
I can't believe that someone would run for a prosecutor's job and say, I'm not going to do it.
Fair enough.
Maura Healey, in August in New Orleans, Senator Elizabeth Warren said this: "The hard truth about our criminal justice system, it's racist. I mean, from front to back, excuse me." Do you agree with what she said there? Any part of it?
I don't know that I'd characterize it that way. What I would acknowledge are the real disparities that exist within the criminal justice system along racial lines, but also along socioeconomic lines. And I think that we've got to work to improve the fairness of the criminal justice system and to make sure that it is working effectively. That's really important. It's something I'm committed to and would want to continue to do as Attorney General.
Jay McMahon, what do you think?
I want to tell you, I've been a criminal defense attorney for 30 years. I have represented African Americans and minorities from Brockton to Onset and all over Cape Cod. I have not seen the criminal justice system, and I see it up front and representing clients. I have not seen it racist front to back. I have not seen any examples of racism, and I've represented hundreds of minorities.
Want to respond to that?
I think the disparities that exist along racial lines in our criminal justice system are real, they're documented, and criminal justice reform is something that the next Attorney General needs to implement.
What have you done about it so
far? A law
far?
was passed, supported the criminal justice reform legislation, you know, and there are a lot of good things that are coming about as a result of that, Jim. It's important that it be implemented. It's important that it be implemented well, and that's certainly something that my office will continue to do.
You know,
Okay, we
Jim,
only have a couple.
But this is the real difference between Attorney
please.
Healey and I. I mean, law enforcement, we're sending the wrong message. Law enforcement needs to know we've got their back. Now, I can tell you for a fact, there is no racism in the law enforcement system. And for her to say that there is, and to put an indictment against them, I just think it's crazy.
We have 90 seconds left. Very quickly here, I want to start with you and then with you. In addition to the statutory power the Attorney General has, Jay McMahon, there's also a powerful bully pulpit. Starting with you in 30 seconds, what would you use that bully pulpit for to advance an agenda, to cause there to be action by the people, and what have you used that bully pulpit for in your 4 years in office? Quickly.
I would speak out against judges who cut felons loose and give them short sentences or small sentences or probation when they've caught red-handed, especially purveyors of poison. We have found that some of these people have gotten out or let out and have gone later on and killed police officers. And to me, it's deplorable that judges would try to be a judge and also the parole board at the same time.
What have you used the bully pulpit of your office for in your first 4 years in office, Maura Healey?
The job of the Attorney General is to be the people's lawyer, and I'm proud of the record that we have standing up for consumers, for workers, for seniors, fighting to protect student borrowers victimized by predatory for-profit schools. I think about the work that we've done for taxpayers. You know, last year alone we brought back over $800 million, my office did, to the state. For every dollar spent on my office, we're bringing back 17 to the state. I want to continue to do the work as the people's lawyer, which means standing up, enforcing the law, and not being afraid to take on interests, no matter how big or how powerful.
Thank you very much. That's all the time we have. Thanks for watching and listening. Thanks to candidates Jay McMahon, Attorney General Maura Healey for participating in this GBH News debate. Remember, Election Day is Tuesday, November 6th.
And be sure to join us again Wednesday, October 17th. That's 2 weeks from today for a live hour-long gubernatorial debate between Republican Governor Charlie Baker and Democratic challenger Jay Gonzalez. He's Jim Browdy. I'm Marjorie Egan. Thanks so much for watching.
And thank you, too.